love you all. What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon, pre-noon, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Hassan Piker, and this is the HASANABI broadcast coming to you live from sunny California, Los Angeles. Folks, we're live and alive, and there's wildfire updates, of course, as always. We're alive, and I hope everyone's having a fantastic one because today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. Today is Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs from all around the world, I hope you are having a fantastic one. I certainly am. This is a part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news. Last night, I went to the Rose Bowl, the staging area for a lot of the wildfire initiatives. A lot of the firefighters that are, staying in that area as they go in and combat these wildfires all around Los Angeles. And I went and I interviewed the incarcerated wildfire firefighters alongside Caroline Kwan, my brother Murat, and also producer March. And it was fantastic. It's one of the few instances where anyone has had this much real-time, consistent access to these guys, these heroes. And it was fantastic. That is, for the record, journalism. That's what I mean when I say sometimes I do end up doing journalism. This is one of those instances, right? I get so much fulfillment out of doing stuff like that. And I think you guys would too if you were out there directly hands-on helping people or talking to people that are in desperate need of just a helping hand, just someone to talk to every now and then. You would truly appreciate it, I think. Bro, these Reddit normies idiots don't consider the prisoner firefighters as slave labor, but as volunteers. So stupid. No, listen, all labor under coercive conditions, under prisoner conditions, are still considered effectively, theoretically, slavery. Having said that, however, this is, and I 100% stand by my statement that I'm going to make here, and I'll talk about this more extensively in a little bit. This is a rehabilitative program. It's the closest you can get to a rehabilitative approach, because it's not just the fact that these guys are going out and fighting wildfires, but they're also in a very different carceral structure than the average county and prison structure. I think what is appropriate here is that these programs should also have job opportunities, and more importantly, these programs should also have better pay. That's it. If there was better pay that had some semblance of pay parity with regular wildfire firefighters, then it would not be any different than an average job. The reason why these people take on the job, these treacherous conditions, specifically is because they have their terms shortened. So that is an element of massive coercion. Having said that, however, there's much work to be done in the criminal justice system, and I will get to that in a brief moment. I'm very excited that we got to do that last night. I'm so fortunate, Shouts out to Scott once again. Oh, wow. I got a mention on ABC Australia. YouTuber and Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, known as HASANABI, alongside actor and fellow streamer Caroline Kwan, have been able to speak to some of the hundreds of people fighting LA's fires as a part of their prison sentence. The US famously uses prisoners to respond to natural disasters and build roads, and the LA fires have drawn huge attention to nearly 1,000 strong incarcerated people deployed across the city. Very nice. Thank you, ABC Australia. I want to give you guys a brief explainer of what this is, okay? First and foremost, there are a couple players here that I need to shout out, okay? Number one is Scott Budnick. So Scott Budnick, who you saw on the broadcast last night, is a Hollywood producer. He made The Hangover, he made Project X, he made Old School, and he basically explained it in his own words, but he is a criminal justice reformer. He's a big rehabilitation guy. And part of that, I think, comes from his own personal experiences. I feel like when you meet some of these people that are absolutely at the bottom rung of society, just like forgotten people, people that have passed, people that have been cast aside, people that are consistently dehumanized. At least in my experience, these are some of the kindest individuals. These are some of the most thoughtful, some of the most kindest individuals you'll ever see, you'll ever meet. These are some of the best people. And it fills my heart with joy that, any moment that I have working with these guys, talking to them, having a normal conversation. They're normal people that don't have the same support system that we are all privileged and fortunate enough to have. They're normal people who had a sequence of fuck-ups, okay, back to back to back, and just kind of fell through the cracks of the system. And I think what these guys need is someone to put their faith in them They need a helping hand. What do you think is the most common part of everyone's backgrounds here? Is they come from incredible poverty. They have no support system. They have nothing to keep them busy. That's the difference between these guys and like even someone like myself. Like I've fucked up when I was growing up. We all have. And I know that if I did not come from an affluent background, like there is no difference between me and those guys. I probably could have kept stringing along those fuck ups until it erupted in this grand explosive, like one final big one that got me permanently landed in prison. I never committed a felony. I don't think you understand. No one is just like, I love committing felonies. No one is born into this planet and their starting position goes, I'm going to do as many felonies as I possibly can. That is the entire point of this conversation. The point is, it starts small. You don't have a good family structure. You don't have a good support system. You don't have a good network. And the people around you are like, yeah, this is the only game in town. You're bored. You don't have any after school programs that you can attend. And then you just string along failure after failure after failure after failure until you're doing more crimes. A lot of people think that the way this works is you just one day decide to go pick up a gun and do a crime, or you're in the vicinity of someone else doing a crime and then you're accidentally in jail forever. Okay. And then there are some people who do get caught up in this dragnet. Now I know fools that could have done that other thing other than rolling with cholos. Sick, man. Take a week off. Okay. Sick, bro. I hate this rugged survivorship bias nonsense. That guy is going to permanently hate me now. 42-month subscriber who literally is like, nah, you don't understand. Well, I also come from a bad background and I didn't do felonies. Why do so many people do that? Why do so many people have this attitude where they're like, how do they not realize that it's just survivor bias? That's all you're demonstrating here. I'm glad that you didn't fall on this shitty path. I'm explaining something entirely different. Not everybody gets the same hand is my point. There is a lot of probability here. Probability plays a major role in people's outcomes. It's rarely ever about personal choices. Having said that, however, are there people who are just constant fuck ups? Absolutely. And there are constant fuck ups in your immediate life as well. Like I'm sure you know someone that you no longer are friends with, that you no longer keep contact with, who is just a straight up constant fuck up. Okay. He just gets in his own way. He can't help himself. Guess what? That guy's not in prison though. But there are people like that. Okay. You just have to keep focusing on people who do want a helping hand, people who may not even recognize that they need a helping hand, and just unconditionally offer them that help. Every single person has infinite potential. It's up to us to try to maximize that. I just always ask people to have a little bit more empathy, you know? For most normal people, I feel like they would just feel unsafe around prisoners. They'd be like, oh my God, these are prisoners. Like, they're just normal people. They're just normal dudes. You know, if you treat them as normal dudes, then it's fine. If you don't do that, and if you have no experience with that sort of thing, you develop this sense that these guys are evil and they're there because they're just like truly evil people. And the reason why they've done crimes is not because of socioeconomic indicators and factors and a lack of support system and no opportunities whatsoever in their lives, but it's because they're evil people. And the media, I think, reaffirms this narrative over and over again. And that's how we arrive at so many people who just have these incredibly draconian attitudes, these opinions about what must be done with these scumbags. Like they need to be cast aside. They need to be treated as pariahs. I think the system is designed to basically churn out like a lower caste of people and keep them consistently within the carceral structure so that they can use them for free labor or almost free labor. That's what I think. Also, so much of the stuff that I talk about on a daily basis is warning you that the system is designed in a way where you could be, or your next of kin can be in these dire conditions. What do you think happens when the housing market becomes inaccessible, unaffordable, and you no longer can retain permanent shelter? I want to give you a little bit of a background on this pilot program. So Scott Budnick is the man, as you guys met yesterday. As a criminal justice reformer and advocate, he does fantastic work, and he works with these guys. A lot of them sang his praises, and I mean, he's a great guy. Basically, he really pushed for a pilot program. We talk mostly to the dudes with the red hats. The dudes in the red hats are a part of a pilot program. It's a new program. It started in August 2023. And the program is for violent youth offenders. So previously, if you had a violent felony offense, you were ineligible for this firefighting program. Scott pushed for the California state by petitioning Governor Gavin Newsom to expand the existing California wildfire incarcerated firefighter program so that even violent offenders that committed crimes under the age of 25 before their prefrontal cortex developed could actually participate in this program as well.
Before our brain was able to develop, before the age of 25, you know, so I mean, this is our second chance, and this is our second chance to prove it. And, you know, at this point, it's a blessing. You know, it's not more about the material, but the growth that we gain from this experience.
I think it's important to talk about how there are obstacles, though, after you are released, where you have this training, right? You have this experience. You deserve to have this as a career, but you know, it's still really difficult, even with legislation that's been passed, to work at expunging records and make it easier to get hired in this career. Like, it is still
the reintegration process is a little tricky, you know, and I believe it depends and it varies on the individual, you know, because circumstances are subject to change. But at the end of the day, I believe if you want to change and you want to get out there, it's
How long you guys got, if you don't mind me asking?
4 months I'm out.
You got a year and a half left?
4 months I'm out. 4 months I'm out.
Okay.
I reside in the San Fernando Valley.
December? Okay.
How much time you have left? 2020.
So the types of crimes that render you ineligible for this program initially were violent offenses, unless there's some way to demonstrate good behavior over an extended period of time. To this day, there are 3 things that render you ineligible to work for to apply to be a part of the Cal Fire training structure as an incarcerated firefighter. If you have an arson offense, if you have a sex offense, or if you have a tendency to escape. Hassan, do you think it's correct to acknowledge people who are automatically afraid of prisoners of a superiority complex, or like, what would you call it? And do you think it's immoral to assume that incarcerated folks are dangerous people? I wouldn't say it's immoral. I think everyone is a victim of their own social conditioning. And if society is constantly telling you that like prisoners are all rabid serial killers, it's understandable that people operate with those assumptions. I would say it's misguided more than anything else. You want to say some stuff? All right, I'm muted. All right, what are you going to say, big dog?
All right, I don't know how much you've talked about like this topic before I got here, but I mean, talking to these guys, it's like 2 very common themes that kept coming up as part of this program was dignity and service. Incarceration, imprisonment's a very undignified position, and you know conditions can be very tough. And they have to go through a certain level of criteria to be eligible for this, and then they have to maintain a high level of good standing to be able to maintain or stay in these programs. And talking to the small group of people that we talked to, like their attitudes were incredibly positive. I was not expecting this level of positivity. They're getting to be in conditions that are way more dignified, and they're getting to give back and, you know, service the communities that, not directly the communities that they've hurt, but that they've done. And some of the you know, they talk about wages a lot, at least you guys do, but a part of that wages also helps the retribution payments. I can only say positive things about like the attitude of the people that we talked to yesterday.
Those are the common the common things that I heard as well in all of our conversations. I think number 1 is the camp conditions. Well, some of the older dudes I talked to openly stated that they would rather do double the amount of time in camp, because the way that this prison structure works is like you have some of the worst prisons in the state, and then depending on if you can survive without actually getting you know, into additional trouble in some of these worst prisons, you can inevitably move to a lower level prison inside of the state. And ultimately, the camp structure that they have is basically the closest I have ever seen to like almost a Norwegian style prison system. Like you have regular prison, you got county jails, and then you have the fire camp. Once you volunteer to be a part of this, you can have your sentence reduced, which is, again, a massive deal for these guys. That's one of the biggest reasons why they do it. And then on top of that, they also get, I mean, a little bit of pay, which is, that's like the lowest, I would say.
So the thing they mentioned with pay was that they haven't increased that. They haven't passed a bill to increase that since like 1984 or something.
Yeah.
I think that also kind of speaks to why it's at the level it is. And
Yeah.
like it also kind of makes sense for
No, they
why
were
it hasn't
until
been
recently they
raised.
were getting paid $5 a day. Now it's up to 24, and they want to, like, Scott is pushing gruesome Governor Gavin Newsom to once again, you know, increase the pay, because we talk about like the coercive elements of being in prison, right? And volunteering for any position whatsoever when you're in prison. You're not doing that because you want to make a living, you want to make a wage. You're usually doing that because you're technically in chains by the state, and this has a likelihood to lower the time that you serve. That's not a normal level of coercion that exists under, you know, regular wage slavery and capitalism. Okay, it's something beyond that. So I think basically bringing up those wages to a standard that is humane would turn this into a much more ethical structure overall. But having said that, the program, even with the way that it's currently designed, has a lot of good things in it. Now, the reason why I say that is because one thing that I don't even think they personally recognize, even though some of the prisoners we talk to openly mention this, is that when they're in camp, because when they're done fighting, they fight fires for 24 hours, they're out in the field, they sleep out there. They're constantly opening up trenches. They're trying to manage the vegetation. It's the most difficult part of wildfire fighting, as far as I understand, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's like a tremendous backbreaking labor. You are constantly hiking up and down these, you know, these windy conditions.
If the ground is flat, they'll just have a bulldozer do it, right?
Yeah.
These guys are going up to the terrain that is otherwise inaccessible. I mean, and it's not just the inmate firefighter program. Like, that's just what this type of firefighting is.
So it's a very difficult task. It's a very dangerous task. You're breathing in a lot of these like fumes and whatnot. And the equipment that they have is the exact same equipment that CAL FIRE wildfire fighters get as well, which is substandard in general, from what I understand. I mean, it could probably be a little bit better.
I can't comment on that.
But overall, it's a very difficult job. Like, they talked about one of the treks that they had to do called the rocket ship, because it's a vertical climb where you have to literally climb up a vertical climb with ropes. You know, you're risking injury, you're going up these mountains, and you're putting your life at risk when you're doing this, right? I think one of the most significant aspects of their experience is that once they are in this structure, once they've been allowed to get this training, they go to a place called fire camp. The fire camps, as far as I understand from the interviews that I conducted, is different than prison. So when they're done doing their 24-hour on, 24-hour off cycle, and the wildfire is contained, they don't go back to prison. They go back to fire camp, which is still prison, but it's not the same kind of prison. And the conditions at fire camp are nowhere near as substandard as like regular prison is. One of the things that they brought up about fire camp, for example, is that they have weights at fire camp. They don't have actual weights in regular prison. One of the prisoners said Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger actually removed the weights, but apparently it was removed beforehand, like before he became governor. And yeah, they don't have weights on the yard in prison. They use prison band. I mean, not prison bands, like resistance bands and stuff like that, which is kind of crazy to think. But like, something as small as that is massively consequential. These guys can play on their PlayStation 4s, right? They have PlayStation 4s that they can play video games on. They can have like some connection to the outside world, some semblance of humanity. And I think that's very consequential. Not only do you get your time reduced, which is massive, but you also end up feeling like a human being, basically. And I think that absolutely plays a major role in reintegration. So this is basically looking at the theory and applying it into the real world and learning that, you know, there's a reason why there's so much empirical evidence that suggests that rehabilitation and retraining and reintegration initiatives like this one are actually massively successful in lowering the likelihood that someone actually reoffends. because the conditions that these guys are experiencing in camp, which is still prison, is significantly better than prison. That positive incentivization structure paired up with the fact that you're getting your sentence reduced actually causes you to really work hard to not fuck this up. Even if you have a tendency to fuck it up, you don't want to go back to prison. That's it. Like, you want to stay at camp. Some of these minor things that you would never even have to think about are massive for these guys. The fact that their family members can bring them food, that's huge. The fact that they have PlayStation 4s where they can play video games. The fact that they have regular weights as opposed to in prison where they don't have regular weights. This is huge.